Before I get into this review, I gotta say that I'm actually a little shocked to see that this movie is rated so badly. Not that there's anything that spectacular in the movie, but I've seen a lot of people say this is one of the worst movies of all time. And let's just say, I don't get it. This isn't Madagascar 3, this isn't Shark Tale, and this isn't Shrek the Third. It's a movie where a snail becomes a race car driver, and people act like it's the worst thing of all time.
Is one of the worst animated movies I've ever seen in my entire life. It is agonizingly bad.
Is this movie really that bad? Like, some people say this is the worst DreamWorks movie ever made, and I just don't really understand that. Like, did we even see the same movie? I mean, not that this movie's a masterpiece or anything like that, far from it, but it's just a generic kids movie at the baseline of it, and there's nothing really glaringly bad about it, other than it is a little too generic. But hey, let's get into the plot. It's about a snail who later becomes we know as Turbo, but I don't remember his original name. I saw this movie like just today, and I don't remember his name. I know it's kind of pathetic. But I will say a problem with this movie that I don't think is really mentioned that often is that this is kind of a rip-off movie of Pixar because it shares like a lot of elements with Cars and Ratatouille, but not that it's really that jarring. It just shares a lot of elements with those two movies. It actually feels like a discount Pixar movie, which I know isn't a glowing review, but hey, at least trying to do a Pixar movie is better than not. So Turbo here, who's voiced by Ryan Reynolds. Yes, the Ryan Reynolds who keeps plaguing the whole world with his shitty Mint Mobile ads. Like, stop making fucking ads and make Deadpool 3, for God's sake. So he likes to race, but he's a snail, and snails are slow. And I guess some people really hate that concept of, snails can't go fast. I mean, I think it's an interesting concept, even if they don't execute it in the best way possible. I think the idea of a snail that happens to go fast is kind of funny, and a kind of interesting idea. So yeah, there's a whole snail colony where a bunch of snails try to eat tomatoes and stuff like that. They're really slow, obviously, and they get killed easily by birds. So Turbo decides to help out his colony, and his vision is, for some reason, video game vision. Like, why is his vision a video game? I don't get it, but yeah, he fails. So since Turbo's such a fuck-up, he decides that, hey, maybe I should make a wish on an airplane, pretend that airplanes in the night sky are like shooting stars. Like, he could really use a wish right now. A wish right now. A wish right now. And his wish comes true because he gets injected with nitroglycerin, or the hell it is, and he becomes a car. Though Turbo's not too good at controlling his new car powers, as he kills a kid, and he kills his whole entire snail colony. So Turbo and his fat brother get kicked out of the snail company, and they have to go out alone. And his brother cries and basically says, "Turbo, you're a piece of shit!" So Turbo and his brother get kidnapped by a Mexican stereotype. There's a lot in this movie, so be prepared to see more.
All my life, I've defended you, covered for you, stood up for you, apologized for you, and this is what I get in return.
And they have to race against other snails in a snail race, who are just characters to make toys of. They have very little to no personality, and they all kind of suck. Though, of course, Turbo is fast! Also, Turbo forms a weird relationship with this guy, who I don't really know his name, and he's just a rip-off of Ratatouille, and they don't really go into detail. They have no reason to like each other, really. Well, the one, on one-sided. Like, why is Turbo like this guy? I have no idea. So this is a strip mall here that nobody goes to, but now that Turbo's here, some people come and are like, hey, this is kind of neat. And so since the one guy's motivation is to get more people to go to this taco stand, you think, well, let's keep that up. And no, he's like, we should go to the Indy 500 and waste all the money that we don't have. And everyone else is like, other than his brother, who's actually the only one that thinks logically, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's waste all this money on this stupid thing. That makes no sense. And this is stupid because the brother needs to replace his oven, but he can't because his other brother stole his money. Makes a lot of sense. If the whole point is to get more attention to the taco stand, then stealing the money so he can't improve shit, doesn't make any fucking sense. But yeah, there's this guy. He's obviously going to be the villain, but he's a twist villain, and I don't even know his name. Like, I don't know anybody's name. I know that's kind of bad, but he's really generic. He's like, I'm a great race driver, and he helps Turbo out, and he's like, no, I don't like you anymore. It's kind of badly written. like this old guy here is not even gonna let Turbo race, but because of him, he's like, I'm gonna vouch for him so he can race, even though he doesn't want him to race. So why would he even vouch for it? Shouldn't he be against it from the beginning? It makes no sense. He's like, I want him to race, and then later it's like, I don't actually want you to race. So what's the point? He wouldn't have been in the race if you didn't vouch for him. You're a fucking idiot. Quickly, the next scene, the guy says, I don't like fucking snails. I'm gonna beat you, motherfucker. And you would think it was, I guess it's supposed to be playful in nature or something like that, but it's really not. He's like, it's supposed to be threatening, but he doesn't say, like, he's like, I'm gonna kill you. He's like, I'm gonna win the race. That's about it. Like, well, what do you expect from him? He's a race car driver. Of course he's gonna want to fucking win the race. Or the fact he's holding Turbo like this, there's nothing villainous about it. But later on, he tries to kill Turbo. So I don't fucking get it. So Turbo goes in the race, but he's not very good until he learns to be better. Also, I forgot to mention, there's a lot of fucking product placement in this movie. There's Rise and HP. There's even, like, food advertisements in this movie. Like, why are there so many? I mean, the race part is pretty funner than some weird stuff. Like, it is well animated, and, racing in anime movies is always fun. So, of course, all the cars crash because the one guy wanted to win, and Turbo gets damaged, which means he can't go fast anymore. So instead of going to the finish line and finishing it like he always wants to do, he decides to give up for some reason, even though no thing's in his way. His brothers give him the generic pep talk, who, even though it makes no sense, he's like, I believe in you now, Turbo, even though I never believed in you before, you fucker! And he's like, yeah, I guess I will try to win the race, even though nothing can really stop me. I know I'm slow now, but, there's no one else who can compete right now. Or then the villain guy who tries to kill Turbo by stepping on him as he tries to drag his car across the finish line, but he ultimately loses. Oh, he gets beat up by the Asian woman stereotype who runs a nail salon. I don't know how more stereotypical can you get. And she's also voiced by a man for some reason. So all the snails decide to do their own race where Turbo gets his powers back. Well, golly. And that is Turbo. Yeah, right there, Turbo.
I'm gonna call you Boo!
While analyzing Turbo for this review, I realized that, well, it's fun to watch. It has a lot of flaws, mostly for it really ripping off Pixar. A lot of themes. Even in the beginning, it kind of rips off Bug's Life. It's not a very original movie. It plays a lot by the numbers, and even though it has some unique ideas, it doesn't have enough to stand on its own, and has a little bit too much weird racial stereotypes, especially for a movie that came out in 2013. But at the same time, it is fun. If you want to see a snail race, a car race, you will get it. It's one of those, it's okay, but once you watch it, you'll pretty much really forget about it. I can see how somebody might not like it, but say it's one of the worst movies of all time. No, it's just gonna be a movie that either you fall asleep to, or like, hey, that was fun, and then completely forget about it. It's one of those movies, and even though it has a lot of flaws, I just don't understand. Like I said, even I didn't care for it that much. I did like it, but I didn't care for it that much. But I just don't see why a lot of people, even in Letterboxd, are like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, geez Louise, people, this movie well, one, it didn't ruin any franchise because it's an original movie. Two, the idea, well, it's not going to ruin the idea. If you want to make the same idea, go ahead. So the idea is not really that original, so if you don't like it, it doesn't really matter. And it doesn't really have much of an impact. The only thing I guess you can really not like about it is the weird racial stereotypes, which aren't really that bad, but they are just kind of weird. But other than that, this movie really isn't terrible in really any regards to the word. Even though some of the elements are weak and definitely could have used some improvements. But it's an enjoyable film when you watch it, just not a memorable one. Turbo's the top of D tier, though I was close to putting in C tier. I think it has a little bit of problems, and the fact that I haven't really had any desire to rewatch this since, and I was actually nervous this time it was going to be bad, and yeah, since the second time I've seen it, it definitely decreased in value a little bit. There's just a lot of elements that definitely could be reworked, like the snail friends that could have been better developed, and the weird racial stereotypes, and some of the human designs, while they look as weird as the other ones, they're kind of worse, and in fact, they look kind of bland. They look bad, but not fucking weird enough like they do in the other DreamWorks movies, if that makes any sense. And yeah, a lot of the elements I realized, yeah, this is very similar to certain Pixar movies, which isn't a bad thing. Like, I like those elements, but feel like they're really, like they took a script of Ratatouille and Cars and mixed them together to get a movie, which is really an interesting concept. I mean, I would never think about combining those two films, but hey, they did. Like I said, it's not a bad movie, but it is lower on the ranking because it could have been I think a lot better. The villain in Turbo, whose name is Guy, and I don't even know, I'm not even trying to pronounce the last name, is, I think, a missed opportunity villain. Mostly because he's a twist villain, and the twist doesn't really work. He's basically like a beta Ernesto de la Cruz, but without any really interesting aspects to the character. Both want to be the best at something, and both will do anything to keep their title. The one, they both are twist villains. Now, however, one it changes drastically throughout the movie from a guy that's great to now he wants to kill a snail, to even when the villain's revealed, it still his plans make no sense. The twist doesn't make any sense because, like I said, he helps Turbo get into the Indy 500, which doesn't make any sense to what his motivations are. He doesn't seem to be pissed off that even the fact that snail is racing against him. Oh, this stupid snail is going to race against me. I'm a professional. Anything like that. He doesn't really have much of an ego. He has an ego, but he's not interesting enough. They made him more interesting. It could have been actually a pretty interesting character, but they went for the ant. It worked a little bit, but not enough for me. Yeah, I didn't recommend the F tier, but I think he's a lot of wasted potential there. So yeah, thank you for watching, and next time on the DreamWorks Marathon, we'll be reviewing Mr. Peabody and Sherman. I believe that's the next one. See you then.